Greetings, peace be with you. In this video, you are going to discover how to boost your masculinity with semen retention. You are going to discover the difference between being a good man and being good at being a man. This is a difference which is so critical to understand, and it held me back for a long time. And by the end of this video, you are going to know the exact practical action steps that you can begin to implement in order to truly enter your masculine path, purpose, and essence as a man. Now, like I said, there is a difference between being a good man and being good at being a man. This difference was established by Jack Donovan in his book, The Way of Men. And the difference basically comes down to, the first one is being good at being a man. And this really has to do with your ability during a survival scenario. So let's imagine that there is a zombie apocalypse going on and shit's hitting the fan right now. How would you respond in that situation? So it really comes down to the 3 Ps, all right? The 3 Ps were established by David Gilmour in his book, Manhood in the Making, in which he's, I think, an anthropologist. He went across a lot of different societies in, I think, all the major continents, and he came down with the 3 Ps, which are commonalities of masculinity in all of these different societies. Now, the first P is that of protection. To be good at being a man means that you can protect your tribe. You can protect those that are weaker from you, from threats that come out from the outside, right? You can establish that boundary from threats on the outside, and you can keep those in your tribe safe, right? Now, the second P is that of providing. You provide for your tribe, not only financially, not only food, not only resources, but emotionally and mentally, right? When stuff is going crazy, when people are scared, when people are panicking, being good at being a man means that you maintain your calm, cool, and collectedness and support your tribe and provide them with that calm, cool, and collectedness so that they do not go further into the panic and the distress. Now, the third P is that of procreation. To be good at being a man means that you are able to procreate, means that you are able to spread your seed. And just with the whole phenomena of the masculinity crisis that we are experiencing is because the majority of men have low testosterone, right? There's an agenda behind this, whether it comes down through the food industry, whether it comes through the pornography industry, whether it comes through the cosmetics industry that is plugging us full of xenoestrogens, right? The 3 Ps, in my view, comes down to your testosterone levels. Now, I've made an entire playlist on this topic, so you can check that out on this channel, but that is not the focus of this video. What I want to focus on is how to be a good man, as explained by the ancient Stoics. So Stoicism has been a huge influence on me, and I want to share with you the 4 cardinal virtues that once we begin to embody and how that factors into the powerful practice of retaining your life force energy that allows you to live into these virtues. Because if you asked Marcus Aurelius, who was the emperor of Rome, if you asked Seneca, who was the advisor to the emperor Nero, if you asked Epictetus, who was a former slave turned philosopher, if you asked any of the Stoic philosophers, what does it mean to be a man? They would have answered that it means to live with virtue. In fact, the word virtue comes from the Latin root virtus, which literally means manliness. So to be a good man means to live with virtue. And the ancient Stoics abided by the 4 cardinal virtues, and you are going to discover how each one of these virtues is affected by the powerful practice of retaining your life force energy. Okay? So the first cardinal virtue is that of prudence, of practical wisdom, of knowledge for living. When we look at the word philosopher, it comes from 2 words, philo and sophos, which literally translates to lovers of wisdom. The ancient Stoics were lovers of wisdom. Now, what is wisdom? Okay, because I had a confusion between wisdom and knowledge. We're living in the world of information, and chances are that you have a lot of information in your head. You have been watching the videos, you have been reading the books, and if someone went and asked you, do you know how to be successful? Do you know how to achieve your goals? You would probably be able to get a good idea in terms of what you need to do. But the problem is actually being able to follow through on it, because the information, we have so much of it And more often than not, that information overload is actually holding us back from taking action because there's so much in our heads. But the question really is whether the information in our heads reflects the information in our lives. And if it doesn't, then we know that there is work to be done. So the difference between wisdom and knowledge is experience. And the ancient Stoics were obsessed with practical wisdom, with how they could empower their own lives to acquiring knowledge that allows them to optimize their decision making, that allows them to optimize their behaviors. So when we look at philosophy through the modern lens, through how it's taught in universities, through how it's taught in school, it's like there are a bunch of people who read a bunch of books and they're explaining a bunch of ideas that don't have any practical application in our lives. So the modern philosophers are more like librarians of the minds, but the ancient Stoics were warriors of the mind. And in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the spiritual text of Hinduism, Krishna tells Arjuna that the truly wise understand that knowledge and action are actually one and the same. Only the immature think that they're different. Think about that. Knowledge and action are actually one and the same. So it's not just about information. It's about how we implement that information to create new experiences in our life. And that is a definition of wisdom, right? If I tell you to stop eating sugar, everyone knows you should stop eating sugar. If like everyone knows how to get in shape, right? Just eat less, move more. It's pretty simple. But if I'm someone who is not following the advice that I'm giving you, then it's not going to be wisdom. It's just going to be words. It's just going to be symbols. It's just going to be insignia. This is going to be air that won't truly have an impact on you. But if I'm sharing some advice with you that I implement in my own life and you can see that through my example, that is the definition of wisdom. There's a really amazing story about Gandhi, right? So I don't know if it's a true story. I don't even know if it's Gandhi, but it's very interesting to note. So there's this woman whose son is addicted to eating sugar all the time. So she travels like many days to get to Gandhi, and she's like, she brings her son. She's like, Gandhi, my son eats too much sugar and it's destroying his health. So please just tell him that stop eating sugar, right? So Gandhi's like to the woman, okay, just come back in a week, right? I can't tell him right now. She's like, what? I just traveled all this distance. He's like, no, just come back in a week and I'll help you out, right? So she's like pretty disappointed. She's like, I traveled all this time, but okay, I'll come back in a week, right? So she comes back in a week, and then Gandhi looks at the kid in the eye. He's like, I don't know if he said yo, but he's like, stop eating sugar. And the kid is like touched, and he just stops eating sugar after that, right? And the woman's like, why couldn't you just say that last week? And Gandhi says to her, because last week I was still eating sugar, right? And that is the difference between information and wisdom, between knowledge and wisdom. True knowledge, of course, as the Bhagavad Gita tells us, is not separate from action. It's not separate from practical wisdom. But once we actually begin to embody that is once we begin to embody our true masculinity. Now, how does semen retention come into this? So what it really comes down to at the end of the day is first and foremost the primal belief of Stoicism, the primal wisdom of Stoicism, which is to let go of that which is outside of your control. And once we narrow down our focus on that which is within our control, our behaviors, our thoughts, that is when we begin to truly embody this first cardinal virtue of prudence. When we begin to narrow down our focus on what we are here to do, that is when we begin to embody this first virtue. And the reason semen retention is essential to embody this is because it is a practice that allows us to transcend the pleasures, the temptations of the body, right? I don't know why my voice is cracking over here, but when we begin to implement semen retention, when we begin to retain our life force energy, there's a lot of resistance to it. There's a lot of conditioning that the body has to overcome in order to let go of it. Because if you've been on this journey, you know that there is a temptation to go and bust a nut. But when you experience that temptation and you don't follow through with it, is when you begin to become the conscious creator of your reality. That is when you begin to make decisions that are in alignment with your higher self rather than with the lower temptations of the body. And that's really step number one, to shift from compulsivity to consciousness, to shift from compulsive reaction whereby you feel a certain way and then you are tempted to just go down a certain path because you feel a certain way, Rather than doing that, you become conscious of why you feel the way that you do. You begin to experience it, and you still make the decision that it is in alignment with your higher wisdom, right? That is what it means to be prudent. That is what it means to have a knowledge for life. When you concern yourself with that which is within your control, your own thoughts, your own behaviors, even though you might feel a certain way, you still make the decisions that are in alignment with your higher self, right? That's the first virtue. Now, the second cardinal virtue of Stoicism is that of justice or integrity. So with the first virtue, it's about getting clarity on your vision, right? Getting clarity on what is truly important to you, getting clarity on why you are here, on your path and purpose. And if you are down the path of busting your nuts all the time, you don't have that life force energy to channel throughout your body to get that vision, to create that ideal reality which you seek to create, right? As I've talked about in previous videos, your life force energy is the same as your creative energy. And when you are busting nuts all the time, you don't have the power, you don't have the energy to conceive of an image that is beyond your current perception, right? Your pineal gland, which is your vision. Once we channel that life force energy throughout our body, I have another video on that as well. That is when we begin to actually have the ability to conceive of an image beyond that of our current environment, of our current body, of our current situation, of our current circumstances, right? And once we can begin to form that image, conceive of that image, that's really the first step in moving towards it. And the second cardinal virtue comes in once we're clear on our values, once we're clear on what we're here to do. It means to live in integrity with them, to make decisions that are in alignment with our values rather than what we have been conditioned for, right? As Gandhi said, again, I've mentioned him a lot on this channel. When what you think, what you say, and what you do are in alignment, that is when you will find inner peace. And that is what it means to live in integrity with your ideals. Because once you're clear on what is truly valuable to you, it really comes down to making decisions that are in alignment with that. Once you're clear that you have to retain your life force energy, and you actually do that, and you channel that energy towards other areas of your life, towards expressing yourself creatively, that really sets the momentum towards positivity in your life, right? And it's really the foundation for everything else, because sexual energy is the most powerful force in this universe. It is what allows us to create. It is what creates life. It is what propels the force of our own evolution, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and allows us to stick with our values, because we are able to let go of the lower temptations of the senses, of what we've been conditioned for, right? So very important to embody this as well, to truly begin to express our masculine essence. Now, the third cardinal virtue is that of, what do you think it is? It's temperance, okay? You can think of this as self-mastery. Again, it ties back to our ability to control our temptations, our ability to master our mind-body system. If a negative thought comes up, if a thought comes up leading us down the path of something that's against our values, right? Because we pick up stuff from our environment all the time. There's so much stimulus coming in, and we have to keep the temple of our mind guarded, and we have to keep our values top of mind. And self-mastery is a combination of two things, right? First and foremost, self-awareness, right? Having awareness of how we feel and why we feel the way that we do. Meditation comes into this and helps us develop the awareness between the signal and the noise. Right? There's so much noise between our ears. There's so much stimulus that we pick up through our environment. And meditation is the ability to actually grow that distance so that we can begin to develop that awareness of what is true to us and what is the junk that we've picked up from outside of us, right? And then self-discipline. Again, it ties back to semen retention, because if you are not disciplined, then you give into the lower temptations and busting nuts all the time, right? Because your body's been conditioned towards that, right? The pornography industry knows this, and that's why they create such compelling material that has been engineered to make us seek it out, that has been engineered to give us that dopamine spike. And then we do it again and again and again, even though we know it's not the best thing for us. But as we begin to become more virtuous in our lives, we discipline ourselves, right? We master our temptations. We master our lower selves. We begin to take actions that are in alignment with our higher self rather than our lower self. rather than what we've been conditioned for, right? So you can see how semen retention factors into each and every single one of these virtues, right? So self-awareness, self-mastery, really making sure that your temptations and your appetites are under control, right? This is something that is a practice. This is something that I can talk about. This is something that I continue to practice in my own life. I notice tendencies in myself to sometimes go down a path which is not serving me. But as I've been on this journey, I notice that I can catch myself that much quicker as well. And I can get back on track that much faster as well. And a quote from Marcus Aurelius, which really resonates with me, goes something like this, right? He says, when force of circumstance upsets your equanimity, lose no time in recovering your self-control, and do not remain out of tune longer than you can help. Habitual recurrence to the harmony strengthens your mastery over it. So what he's saying is that anytime you fall off your center, anytime you lose your equanimity, anytime you go off track, because that's going to happen. That's part of the process. Don't beat yourself up. Don't judge yourself. Don't lose yourself in that, because it's like, oh, I made one mistake and I made that one mistake, so might as well just go down this whole path, and then it becomes even more and more, right? It's never the first meal that you binge on. Like, let's say you're on a diet and then you're like, oh man, I just ate the sugar right now. Might as well just binge on all of this other stuff as well because I ate that sugar. It's not the first thing that ends up causing you to go off track. It's like everything that follows it, right? So what Marcus Aurelius is telling us is that anytime you fall off track, lose no time in recovering your self-control. Get back to your equanimity, right? Recover your self-control, recover your harmony. And the more you recover it, the more you will strengthen your mastery over it, okay? Now, the final cardinal virtue is that of, what do you think it is? It is that of fortitude, which can be thought of as courage, okay? So courage comes from the Latin root of heart. So just like the heart vitalizes your entire body and all your other organs, courage is the virtue that vitalizes all the other virtues, right? Courage is taking action in spite of the fear that you feel. It is doing the right thing regardless of what is going on between your ears, regardless of anything other than what you know to be true for you, right? And this is something that, again, once you practice semen retention, once you overcome your lower temptations, you increase your confidence to overcome all the other things in your life as well. You begin to have the energy to channel towards creating more things in your life as well. You begin to have the energy to put yourself out there, to get your voice out there, to express your ideas, to reach out to people, to not be afraid of rejection, right? Because courage is what leads to confidence, right? People are like, yo, I'm not confident enough to do this. I'm not confident enough to start my business. I'm not confident enough to post videos of myself on YouTube. I'm not confident enough to reach out to people with my music. I'm not confident enough to start my business, whatever it is. But confidence is not a requirement to do any of these things. Confidence is a result. Really understand that. Confidence is a result of when you take right action, okay? So it's a result when you take right action, and that right action helps you develop competence, right? So confidence comes from competence, which is your capability, your belief in your ability to create the result. And where does competence come from? Competence comes from courage. It comes from being open to failure, being willing to fail, being willing to be looked bad at, being willing to experience the hate and the negative feedback, because you're doing the right thing regardless of any of that. And semen retention is the tool that allows us to cultivate the energy, the life force within us to go out there and live with virtue, to be an expression, to be an exemplar, to be the ideal, and really serve as an example to the people around us, right? Now, ideals are not attainable, okay? I like to think of them as guiding stars rather than awaiting shores. When the ancients used the stars to guide them, they just used it for direction, right? It's like you have a compass, right? You have the compass in your heart and you move in that direction. You're not going to get to the stars, but they will lead you in the right direction. And as long as you are moving in that right direction, in your path, in your purpose, you will feel it in your heart. And you will know that you are doing what you came here to do. So a quick message from my heart to yours. I hope that you truly begin to embody these teachings into your life, and leave a comment below letting me know the one action step that you are going to take right now after watching this video. I do not want this to be another session where you just consume a bunch of information and don't do anything with it. So leave a comment below letting me know the one thing you're going to do that you've been procrastinating on, that you're finally going to do right here, right now. Make that commitment in the comment section. I love hearing from you. And if there's any way I can help you out, leave a comment as well, okay? Subscribe if you haven't already. Click the like button. It helps the channel grow. But with that, I conclude this video. Much love to you. Take care, and I will catch you in the next one.